I think I'm on. So, all right, let's get into it. I'm fucking 1 hour late. I totally dropped the ball, guys. I'm sorry. I completely thought that this stream was actually set for. I thought it was set for 6:30, so I thought I was gonna have a little bit of time, but I completely messed up on that. So that's on me. And but you know what they say: better late than never. Um, This is a crazy episode, so I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna talk about everything that happened in this episode. If you've already been rocking with me, you know what the deal is. My name is Chenny Britt. I'm not always on time, but I do always show up. And I'm one half of Winter Hill Warriors, covering Tokyo Vice. We just had the season finale, potentially the finale of the show, potentially the end of the show. I think there's room for a season three. it, they got to be careful with how they do it if they do want to do it. But there's amazing actors in this show, actresses as well. So I'll talk a little bit at the end about where I think this show could potentially go. But I do think we could get a season three. But if we don't, these first two seasons, these only two seasons have been awesome. I'd rather have them tell an awesome story from beginning to end as opposed to, cooking up some bullshit and making things way longer than they should be, right? Like, I'd much rather have a show be coherent from beginning to end and just be a little bit shorter than be hot fucking garbage because they got greedy and tried to make more seasons of that shit. All right, so everything is on. Let's get cooking. I'm gonna switch to. All right, so let's get cooking. Let me know in the chat if my levels are off or anything like that. Just let me know. But episode 2 is titled Endgame, and here we go. We get a resolution to a lot of different things. So we first start off the episode with Katagiri and Nagata talking about how they're gonna approach this raid on Tozawa's properties, I should say. When I say properties, they're not always in his name, but basically they're looking for physical evidence of his signed agreement with the FBI, which would cook him if they could find it and expose it. The problem is they don't know specifically where it's at. They do know from Kazuko that it's either at the hotel that he's been living at or the Yoshino, which is the yacht that he threw parties at, where he blackmailed Shigematsu in season 1, and where Shigematsu ended up being hugely responsible for the murder of Paulina. So they're talking. Nagata's about to get transferred out of Tokyo anyways, but she's got a few hours left, and they're trying to figure out what they need to do and how they're going to approach this raid. Now here's the thing. If they raid one place before the other place, that's going to give Tozawa enough time to go in there and get his shit out of there, right? So they kind of have to conduct these raids at the same time so you're not tipping him off. So that's what they kind of talk about at first. And then there's the matter of what are you going to do once you actually get the evidence, right? Tozawa is a powerful ass dude. We're going to see a little bit of that in this episode. He's got moles in the police station, in the police force. So going through the police force, you're going to risk the evidence getting destroyed, and Katagiri is going to risk his family getting killed. So that's an issue. If you give it to the Meicho, which is initially what Katagiri wants to do, well, Tozawa might have moles in the Meicho as well, and he can just beat up and almost kill reporters from the Meicho and basically force them to shut up, right? Which is what he did with Tintin last episode. Tintin barely survived a brutal stabbing, and that's because he got lucky. But basically, Tozawa can intimidate all of the reporters, and he can pay off the policemen. So what can they really do? So Nagata's like, look, giving the story to Jake and thinking that Jake's going to pull this off is like wishful thinking, because more likely than not, the story's going to get killed. And Katagiri has to come up with his own plan, but at the same time, they got to conduct this raid. So they're kind of in a tough position where they got to figure out what they're going to do. And Katagiri's idea is, well, what if Tozawa's enemies learn of his betrayal, right? What if the fellow Yakuza families know about his signed agreement with the FBI. Maybe his enemies will be the ones who turn on him. And if his enemies find out, Tozawa is not going to be doing jail time. He's going to die. So this is one of those things where it's not 100% moral, but it's necessary. Meanwhile, back at Sam's defunct club, that's where the remaining members of the Chihara, including Sato, including Masaki, Jake, Sam, that's where they're all hiding out. And obviously, Sato's pissed because he's like, you didn't fucking tell me that you were going to bring Tozawa's mistress here. And Sam's like, hey, by the way, she's also fucking Jake. And Sato's just like, God damn, man. But to make matters more complicated, obviously Tozawa wants Masaki at all costs because he knows that she betrayed him. So Sato's thinking, look, I could potentially trade Masaki over to Tozawa right now for peace and protect all of my men. And as you know, he's not technically Oyabun yet, but Sato is the leader of the Chihara. His loyalty and his responsibility is to them, right? He owes it to them. So it's a tough situation for Sato because he really doesn't give two fucks about Masaki. But, you know, he cares about Sam, and Sam's like, you can't trade her in. So Sato ultimately doesn't trade her in. And Jake talks to Masaki, and Jake's an optimist, right? So he's telling her, look, just give me your phone. I have a story that can, take Tozawa down, and just give me your fucking phone, and I'm gonna get us out of this situation. Now we know it's obviously not gonna be that simple. So then Jake uses the phone and he calls Emmy, and Emmy is at the hospital keeping an eye out on Tintin, and Jake wants to dictate the story to Emmy. So he wants Emmy to type the story up while he reads it to her on the phone, and Emmy is like, no fucking way. Tintin just got stabbed to death. We can't publish another story about Tozawa or else reporters are going to die. And I think this is the first time that Jake found out about Tintin's stabbing. So he's obviously very concerned about Tintin. So there's nothing the Meicho can do to publish the story. Jake is devastated because now it looks like there's a dead end. But Emmy tells Jake, look, I have another potential solution. Just hang tight, but we can't publish the story right now because we can't have reporters die. Totally fair. Listen, like, Jake is a fucking psychopath for even trying to keep pushing the story out. Jake's dad is crazy as hell for telling his son, yeah, I'm not really too worried about our family being in danger. You gotta do what you gotta do, son. I think in real life, this stuff does not go this way, but, credit to them. Meanwhile, Tozawa learns from Hagino that his right-hand man, Yabuki, is now gone. Yabuki is in jail. And we know from last episode that Yabuki got set up by Katagiri. He pulled up with a butterfly knife ready to butcher Katagiri's family, which was just insane. But Katagiri set him up, got his prints on the gun that was used in the Ishida shooting, which resulted in the murder of Ishida, the architect, and maybe one other person. Anyways, Yabuki's fucked, right? There's plenty of evidence on Yabuki. He's cooked, but Tozawa has Shigematsu in his pocket, so if Shigematsu becomes prime minister, he could probably get Yabuki out of jail. So that's what Tozawa tells Hagino to do. Go talk to Shigematsu. Go get Yabuki out of jail right now because I need my number one killer out on the streets. At the same time, he wants Hagino to go find Sam, right? The Gaijin. So this is the first time Tozawa finds out about Yabuki getting arrested. It definitely weakens him a lot because I think Yabuki at this point is the highest ranking member that's still loyal to Tozawa. Right after giving the order to go free Yabuki and to go find Sam, Tozawa starts his first day of work. I started my first day of work roughly 3 to 4 weeks ago, and it's pretty funny because things are just so awkward. You got to make small talk with all the other fucking employees and shit. Hey, are you happy to be here? Yeah, I'm happy to be here. But, you got to say that 70 different times. It's just the first 2 weeks always sucks ass. But Tozawa's a G, so he walks in the boardroom owning the fucking place because he also knows he could just kill everyone. But he pulls up as president of Kaizushin Holdings. So that's Tozawa's previous title. He's president of Kaizushin Holdings, or actually current title. I don't know if that's just one of Kazuko's companies or if that's like a bullshit shell company that he has. Either way, he's the president of Kaizushin Holdings, and now he is being welcomed to the board of Suzaku Financial. And remember the old dude who was golfing with Tozawa in the previous episode? His name was President Noguchi. Man, these names, I'm telling you, man, I'm not great with the Japanese names, so it's a bit of a struggle for me. But the old guy's pissed that Tozawa is part of the board. Everyone else on the board, all of these stiff old execs, are obviously terrified as well. Tozawa's reputation precedes him, but it doesn't matter. He has strong-armed his way onto the board, and it's weird seeing a fucking certified murderer killer in the boardroom. But to be honest, I'm not going to go on an anti-capitalist rant, so I'm just going to keep going. I don't have time for that today, but, corporate murder. Anyways, back to Sam's Club. They're kind of fucked at this point, right? Because Jay can't publish the story right now for the Meicho, or else more reporters are going to die. They're kind of boxed in because if Tozawa's men find out where they are, they don't have enough members to fight them. A lot of the Chiharakai got slaughtered, so they're pretty screwed. And Jake's throwing a rant, basically being like, "Why am I such a fucking idiot?" It's like, dude, Jake, you're just a fucking idiot, dude. I don't know what to tell you. And that's basically what Sato tells him. Sato's like, "Look, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're a journalist. If you do your job, you're gonna piss off people. And I'm a gangster, and if I do my job, I'm gonna piss off people. Like, I don't really know what you're bitching and moaning about." So Sato keeps things in perspective. Jake fortunately calls Katagiri, which I think he should have just done in the first place. Calls Katagiri. Katagiri's like, "Where the fuck have you been?" Jake's like, I couldn't talk to you. You know what I mean? I couldn't use my phone, blah, blah, blah. But Katagiri knows about Jake and Masaki's relationship, and Katagiri has a plan, and he tells Jake, "Look, just tell me where you're at right now. I'm pulling up." It's risky, not because Katagiri's going to expose them. We know Katagiri is on the right side of the law. We know Katagiri put his whole family and his own life in danger to go after Tozawa. So Katagiri is on the straight side. But he also drives the loudest red convertible in the fucking city, man. He's driving like an American-style muscle car. I mean, it looks American style. I don't know much about cars, but he's driving like a beautiful red convertible, vintage. Like, that thing sticks out like a sore thumb. He's easily fucking tracked. So as he pulls up to Sam's Club, Tozawa's got men that are fucking watching him and staking out Katagiri, and they follow him. So they're obviously going to know where they're at right now. All right, let's keep going. Emmy's plan, we find out, is to take the story to Shingo. So I think Shingo used to work at the Meicho. He's also Emmy's former lover at this point. I think what the story is that Shingo left the Meicho. I don't know if he left willingly or whatever, or maybe he was passed over for some promotion. We know that shit happens all the time in the workplace. But Shingo started his own paper, right? So his own paper is this little boutique paper. It's not as prestigious as the Meicho, not even close, but Shingo's running his own business, right? So he's the one who can decide whether he can publish a story or not. So Emmy goes right to him and says, "Look, we have a story that you can publish. If the Meicho publishes it, we're going to have more reporters die, but this is an exclusive. We have a story about Tozawa signing an agreement with the FBI." And Shingo's like, "Dude, if my paper publishes it, what do you think is going to happen to my reporters? Tintin just got stabbed up in an alleyway. What do you think is going to happen to my reporters if we publish this story? I have to keep my employees safe." Also, he's still pissed at Emmy for the shit that Key, Emmy's younger brother, pulled last episode, which is totally understandable. He tried to kidnap Shingo's fucking son, and he actually put his hands on Shingo's son. So I get it. Shingo's mad. Shingo's pissed off at Emmy, and at the same time, this proposition is very dangerous for Shingo's employees. So he rejects Emmy and sends her out of there. Back at Samantha's club, Katagiri pulls up. Once again, like, his red convertible is just outside of the fucking club. It's crazy. But he pulls up, and we actually find out that the Yoshino is in Masaki's name, which is something that a lot of criminals do. They buy cars, buy vehicles, they buy real estate in family members' names, girlfriends' names, stuff like that, because then obviously it doesn't leave as much of a paper trail. If you're getting searched, blah, 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 they're going to go right to your name. Oh, wait, you don't own anything. None of it's in your name. So, kind of gives you a layer of protection. But it's still not that difficult to find out, right, who actually owns it. So Katagiri tells Masaki, look, you're actually technically the owner of the Yoshino. We have to get your signature in order to search it. Otherwise, they would need probable cause or whatever, however it works in Japan to go on the yacht, right? Like they can't just break into the yacht without some sort of solid reasoning for that. So an easy way to bypass that is just to tell the owner of the yacht, hey, can we search your place? And the owner happens to be Masaki. So Masaki gives the green light to go search the yacht, which is huge for our boys. At this same time, while this meeting is going on inside the club, outside the club on the deck, Sam and Jake are kind of just giving each other shit. Sam's like, why the fuck would you be banging the mistress of the most fearsome Yakuza leader in Tokyo right now? And Jake's like, you're banging Sato, who's also a Yakuza leader. And they just both start laughing because they're like, man, we're just two crazy gaijin. But anyways, as that's happening, right, Katagiri's like, okay, we got the information. We're going to head to the Yoshino now. He's about to do this thing solo, but Jake tags along. Jake's like that little brother, like that fucking super overeager little brother who's like, I gotta come over, I gotta roll with. So Katagiri's like, yeah, I'll let you roll with. You know, you have been a huge part of this investigation. Why not? But you know, at the same time, as this is happening, we know that Tozawa's men are staking out the place. They're watching them. They're fucking watching them. Oh, another thing I should mention is that Sato also talks to Katagiri, and Katagiri tells Sato, like, what Katagiri tells Sato is, hey, listen, if we get evidence that Tozawa is cooperating with the FBI, I'm going to give you the evidence to use, okay? We can't do anything. Our hands are stuck. Our hands are tied, I should say, because he's probably got someone in the police force, or he's going to have the Prime Minister, Shigematsu, if Shigematsu actually gets sworn in, he's going to have the Prime Minister in his pocket. There's nothing the police force can do, and we can't expose him via the papers because he can shut that down through intimidation. So the only way for Tozawa to get justice, the only way to stop this motherfucker is through, you know, street justice. So that's basically what Katagiri tells Sato. So Sato tells Sam that, and Sato heads up. So the raids happen on the hotel first. So remember what I said at the beginning of this stream? I said you have to raid the hotel and the Yoshino at the same time. Otherwise, you're giving Tozawa way too much time in advance to plan how he's going to get rid of the evidence. So they aren't able to coordinate the raids at the same exact time. The hotel raid happens just a little bit before the Yoshino raid, but it's still close enough. So Nagata pulls up and she's like, you know, we're searching your hotel for fucking meth. Obviously, Tozawa hasn't kept any drugs in his hotel. He's not that stupid. He knows that nothing's in a safe. So he just laughs and smiles as Nagata searches the safe. He even opens the safe for her, and she can't find anything. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to tell your superior, you know, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as Nagata leaves, Tozawa panics and tells Hagino, you know, reach out to whoever is manning the Yoshino right now, because he knows the papers are at the Yoshino. They're on the Yoshino. So he's like, we got to go get to the Yoshino right now and get rid of the evidence from the Yoshino. So the Yoshino raid happens, you know, almost right after, and one of the crew members on the Yoshino spots Katagiri and Jake rolling up a little bit ahead of time, so he sprints over to the safe to go try to steal the evidence, but he ends up getting caught, right? And at the same time, Jake, as he's walking in the Yoshino, he ends up walking in that same room that Paulina was murdered at, the same room that was on the videotape, the same room that he watched over and over again. So he kind of has a rough moment where he's like, damn, like some brutal shit went down in this room. So it's just a tough moment for Jake. But now they're ready to kind of launch their setup. And it's actually kind of funny. I don't think this ends up doing anything because of how the episode ends up going. So they end up not necessarily needing this type of setup. But anyways, they catch the crew member who tried to run off with the evidence and protect Tozawa. And they end up finding a little bit more evidence than they originally expected, right? So they originally expected to find signed evidence of Tozawa working with the FBI, which they do, but they also find a ton of donation receipts signed by Tozawa to Shigematsu. And that can be very, very important, because if Shigematsu as a politician hasn't revealed all of these donation receipts to the public, and if he hasn't filed them properly, then he can be forced to resign, right, due to accepting like illegal money, stuff like that. So they actually have enough to take Shigematsu down and prevent him from becoming prime minister. So, anyways, back to the phone call. Katagiri gets the crew member to call Tozawa and pretend like he escaped from the police and he has the evidence. So Tozawa's like, okay, where do you want to meet? And he's like, I'm going to meet you here. And Tozawa tells him, okay, good. Just hang tight, hold the evidence, and we're going to reward you after this. So like you would think that Tozawa is going to get caught at this meeting, but that's not how the episode ends up going because, the Yakuza end up taking things into their own hands. But we'll touch on that as we get there. All right, back at the Sam's Club, which is the new safe house. As I mentioned earlier, Katagiri drives the loudest fucking car in Tokyo, a fucking red vintage sports car. So it's easily spotted, and the men that are sitting outside staking out the place, they just wait till Katagiri leaves, so no cop is there, and they just roll up with guns ready to murder everyone in sight. Fortunately, Masaki catches a glimpse of them coming through because she's paranoid and she's been looking out the window this entire time. She warns Sam. Sam at first tells one of the Chiharakai members, and he's like, well, Sato's gone and we can't leave if Oyabun's not here. He's not giving us the green light. But Sam just like kind of bullies him and big dicks him and is just like, dude, we got to get the fuck out of here. And the dude is smart. He's like, he understands if they stay there, they're all going to die. So they narrowly escape Tozawa's men, which is huge because, they were fucked. I don't even think they have guns. They might have a few. Meanwhile, Sato and Jen pull up and Katagiri hands him the evidence. So Katagiri gives Sato one piece of evidence. He doesn't give him the receipts of the donations with Shigematsu because why would the Yakuza really care about that? But he gives him the signed agreement with the FBI and he tells Sato, you do the rest. Meanwhile, Jake is talking with Emmy, Shinohara, and I almost said Tintin, but Tintin's obviously laid up in the hospital. So Jake's talking with Emmy and Shinohara, and they're talking about the evidence about Shigematsu. So even if they can't write a story about Tozawa for fear of retaliation, they could potentially write a story about Shigematsu. And either way, that's a huge story in and of itself, right? Like you have the next prime minister accepting illegal or unreported massive amounts of campaign donations from one of the biggest gangsters in Tokyo, if not the biggest gangster currently, just based off of, where he's infiltrated, right? That's going to force him to resign. So Shigematsu's political career is fucking cooked, and he'll be lucky to avoid jail if they write a story about this. So all of a sudden, the Meicho is looking like they have a nice fucking story on their hands. Now, remember the escape that I just covered a little bit earlier? Oh, fuck. I fucked up this entire time. My fault, guys. They weren't at Sam's Club. They were at another Chiharakai safe house. But this time they escaped to Sam's Club. So this is where Ishida was shot. And he didn't die here technically. But this is where he was shot and, basically killed, essentially, right? So some of the Chiharakai members walk in and they kind of have an emotional moment where they're like, man, is this where Ishida was shot? Is this where Oyabun was shot? And they don't have a ton of time, right? Because Tozawa's men know where Sam's Club is. So they're on borrowed time, but they've still managed to escape. But the problem is Masaki has her mom staying at that apartment that Tozawa bought for her. So all Tozawa does is he just pulls up to that apartment, basically holds Masaki's mom hostage and tells Masaki, I'm going to kill your mom if you don't come meet me. So it's looking really bad for Masaki, but give Sam credit. I know Sam is an annoying ass character for many people. She pisses me off a lot as well. I think she can be reckless. I think she can be, I think she could be fucking stupid. I think she can be very selfish. I do think she's pretty hot. So there is that. But either way, give credit to Sam because she comes up with a good plan, right? She tells Masaki, listen, tell him you're going to meet him. We're going to figure something out. So Sam has a plan up her sleeve. Meanwhile, back at the maid show, Emmy returns. And remember we found out last episode that Baku actually wasn't the mole in the maid show. So this entire season, I thought Baku was the one who was the mole. I fucked up. I'm glad that this show misled me because it actually made me feel good. It made me feel alive. But Baku's not the mole. And Emmy tells Baku, look, we got enough dirt to take down Shigematsu, which is a huge fucking story, and we're technically not putting Tozawa's name in there. And Baku, to his credit, the dude greenlights the story. He's like, write it. Go write the story. And it's a pretty big redeeming moment for Baku, even though he's throughout most of the season 1 and season 2, he's a complete asshole piece of shit. But give credit to Baku. He steps up in this moment. But things aren't all good for our people at the maid show. Shinohara gets a call from Jason Aoki, and Aoki's like, come meet me in my hotel room right now. And he sounds fucking pissed. Okay, so now we kind of see a little bit more of what Sam's plan is, right? So Sam tells Misaki, hey, you're going to go meet Tozawa at an address. And it turns out that the place that Sam is going to meet Tozawa at is, or not Sam, Misaki's going to meet Tozawa at is in public. And Sam also tells Sato the address. So now Sato has the drop on where Tozawa is going to be next, which is hugely powerful, right? Like if you're talking about gang wars and shit like that, having someone know your location is, it's you can't have that, right? Like that's the ultimate form of information if you can know your enemy's location. So now Sato knows where Tozawa is going to be. At the same time, Shinohara pulls up to Jason Aoki's hotel, and it turns out that Jason got ratted out by someone. Remember what I said last episode that I didn't believe that Jake didn't leak Jason's name? Remember, Jake had that whole tense negotiation with Lynn Oberfeld where he told Lynn, I have a source in the FBI confirming that you guys are working with Tozawa. And Lynn's like, give me the source and I'll give you confirmation. And then we kind of see Jake just, and then it just cuts to a different scene, right? Now, as reporters, as journalists, you're not really supposed to give up your source. Like, that's a big fucking no-no. But I said last episode, my last stream, I was like, I bet you Jake dropped the name. We've seen throughout this entire show, season 1 and season 2, that Jake is down to get the job done by any means necessary, right? Like, he'll neglect his fucking family to go get the story and get the job done. He's a workaholic, and it's going to end up destroying a lot of his personal relationships if he doesn't change that, but that is just how he is wired. He gets tunnel vision. So we find out from Jason Aoki that someone snitched to the FBI, right, that he gave up confidential information, and now he's in serious trouble. First of all, he's done in Japan, right? He's getting called back to DC. He's no longer going to be in Japan, and he might face charges. He's definitely going to lose his job, right? So his life might be fucking ruined right now. So he calls Shinohara over, and he's like, why the fuck did you snitch? Because the only two people that knew were Shinohara and Jake. Remember when they had that little midday drink sesh? So Shinohara was like, dude, I would never give up your name. So Jason's like, well, there's only one other person who would know. So we know it's fucking Jake. Shinohara is devastated. All right, so we find out a little bit more of what Sato's plan is. Sato gets the evidence from Katagiri, the signed papers between Tozawa and the FBI, and he brings it to all of the families. Now, I got to pull on my phone for this because I have notes for actually this part because I was kind of confused on how all of this works, but here's kind of the lowdown. So, and shout out to Reddit this is from the Tokyo Vice subreddit. Shout out to the account Conversation C8457. But basically, Tozawa was initially operating out of Kanto, right? So Kanto's a different region, whereas the Chiharakai have been operating out of. I misspoke. The Chiharakai have been operating out of Kanto, and Tozawa has been operating out of a region called Kansai, right? So I think the families that Sato is calling right now are all the Tokyo families in the Kanto region, not the Kansai region, but I could be wrong. Anyways, Sato calls all the families over, and he's like, look, guys, Tozawa's a fucking snitch. And here's a crazy thing, right? A lot of the families were down to just kind of, go with whatever Tozawa said because he was just too powerful. But Tozawa's snitching, and not just snitching to the cops, the local cops, because all of the families seem to have some sort of relationship with the local cops. You probably have some sort of mole in there, or you got an officer that isn't a mole, but once in a while he throws you a bone, you throw him a bone. Kind of like what Katagiri had with the Shida, where Katagiri respected Ashita, Ashita respected Katagiri. Katagiri would never bend the rules or break the law for Ashita, but he also recognized that even if Ashita was a crime lord, he kept things more peaceful than what the alternative would be, right? They always say, there's that saying, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. So Tozawa being a snitch, not to the fucking local cops, but to the American FBI, could be the thing that ends up uniting all of the local families and reminding them, hey, united we stand, divided we fall, that type of thing, where if they unite, they can take down Tozawa. So Sato brings the signed evidence over. It's irrefutable. Like you see the signatures right there. All of the local family leaders all realize, okay, yeah, Tozawa's a fucking snitch. And Ichigawa, I think this dude's name is Ichigawa. We saw him in the previous episode when Sato is trying to initially link up with him. But this dude Ichigawa is like, okay, fine, we'll work with you to take down Tozawa, but there's one other person we have to get. Now, I don't know if this person they're talking about is Kazuko or if it's the head boss. And this is where this Reddit post came in handy, because I wasn't really understanding this for a minute. But out of all of these families in the Kanto region have their own boss. So Ashita was the former Oyabun of that family. Sato's going to become the new Oyabun. And then Ichigawa is the leader of the Ichigawa family, and so on, right? Now, they all report to an even older guy who is like the chairman, who's known as the Kaicho. Now, the Kaicho of Kanto was like the Oyabun of Kanto. And remember the dude Nakahara who Tozawa tossed off the balcony of the building? He was the Kaicho for the Kansai region. So that's kind of how this all breaks down. Anyways, I don't know if the person that Ichigawa was talking about that they need to get is Kazuko or if it's the head honcho of their local region. It's up for debate. But Sato also says a fire set of lines where he's like, I respect every man in this room, and I hope to earn your respect as well. So they can kind of see that this young gun who's now taken over for the Chiharakai, he couldn't be more different from Hayama. Hayama was a fucking psychotic, murderous bastard, great actor who had no respect for anyone and was just down to kill if you stood in his way. All of a sudden, Sato is a respectable young dude who's got a good head on his shoulders. You can immediately see the rest of the families look at him with a different light. Okay, Katagiri and Jake are now debriefing, right? Because it was a successful raid on the Yoshino. They got evidence on Tozawa and the FBI. They got evidence on Shigematsu. Everything seems good. Jake's like, I can't wait to write my story. And Katagiri's like, you're not writing your fucking story about Tozawa. And he kind of just big dicks Jake here. He says, look, I gave the evidence to Sato. He's going to take care of it. Sometimes, it's immoral because if they do take care of it, that means they're going to kill Tozawa. And technically, the moral route, I guess, is to have Tozawa get not street justice, but legal justice. But, Katagiri decided, hey, I'm going to let the streets administer justice. And Jake feels completely betrayed. He's like, well, why didn't you tell me? Why'd you leave me out of the loop? And Katagiri's just like, I didn't want to dirty your hands. And look, he's kind of half lying. The truth is, maybe that was part of it. Maybe part of it was Katagiri didn't want to dirty Jake's hands. I think the bigger truth is that if Jake knew about this from the start, he might not have played ball, right? Because Katagiri's got an ego, Jake's got an ego, but Jake being like, he's like 21 in this, right? He's got a massive ego, right? Like, you remember what it was like when you were 21. You thought you were the fucking man. So Jake's got a crazy ego, and he knows that this story could take him to a whole new level. So Katagiri probably thinks if I let Jake in on the real plan that I have, he might not go along with what I want, and he could fuck things up. Either way, Jake feels betrayed, and he's not like, oh, fuck Katagiri, I'm done with him, but he's just very, very hurt because Katagiri is like a big bro mentor type to Jake, and it sucks to learn that he kind of you didn't even know about Katagiri's plans. But this is how the game works, man. And this conversation ends with Jake getting a call from Masaki, basically, and that call basically tells him, look, I got to meet with Tozawa. Here's where we're going to meet. So now Jake and Katagiri know this location as well. So everyone's got the drop on Tozawa. That's the issue with Tozawa in this episode, especially now that he doesn't have Yabuki, and we know that Hagino doesn't really fuck with him. Hagino's really loyal to Kazuko. the problem now is that Tozawa's moving way too emotionally, and he's no longer thinking ahead because he's in panic mode, right? The FBI raids on his hotel and the Yoshino have him scrambling. So now that he's under pressure, he's got to make decisions under pressure. He's sloppy, right? It's sloppy to tell Masaki, hey, like, I'll meet you at the restaurant, blah, blah, blah. The truth is, he should have set it up in a way where Masaki wouldn't know where to meet until the very end, right? Like, so he by letting Masaki kind of dictate where to meet because he was emotional, now everyone has the drop on where Tozawa's going to be at. His enemies know where he's going to be at, and the police officers know where he's going to be at. So he's fucking cooked. All right, so this fucking dude, right? This is the dude who told Emmy a few episodes back when we thought the mole, or when I thought the mole was Baku. This is the older guy who is even, he's like above Baku. He kind of runs the Meicho, right? He's the one who told Emmy, hey, investigate Tozawa, do whatever you got to do. His name is Suzaki. Well, it turns out that he was the one who lit the videotapes on fire. So Emmy first brings him the story about Shigematsu, and this dude's like, listen, you're awesome, Emmy. Like, you're very proud. Someday you're gonna run this place, but that we gotta kill that story. I can't run that story. And Emmy's like, what do you mean? And he admits that he's the one who destroyed the tape. And his reasoning is, hey, if we put that tape out, that would have been a government official at that time, of Shigematsu, Minister of Transport. It would have been a government official undergoing a brutal scandal, right? Like, that would have killed our connections with members of the government. What are we going to do for stories? It's going to kill our paper. So this dude was only thinking about the paper, and because of that, he destroyed the evidence because he didn't want to jeopardize their relationship with the government. So he wasn't protecting Tozawa, and he wasn't even, like, he was protecting Shigematsu, but what he was really protecting was, the Meicho's relationships with members of the government. So he's a fucking bastard, and he tells Emmy, look, someday you're going to be in my chair, you're going to make these same decisions, and Emmy's like, well, fuck you, and fuck sitting in your chair if I got to make those decisions. I really like Emmy. She's a very strong character. All right, here's where things fucking heat up, and the episode just gets insane. Tozawa pulls up to the meet with Masaki, and it turns out it's at a restaurant that he used to eat at all the time, and Masaki told Tozawa, like, because Tozawa also wants Jake to meet as well. So Masaki told Tozawa, Jake will meet you as well, but it's got to be in public. So Tozawa agrees. He thinks that he's gonna get exact revenge, and Masaki, and then Hagino's like, yo, let's go to this back room. It's gonna be a lot more quiet, blah blah blah. Tozawa's like, cool. And he walks right into an ambush, right? He was already done by the time he pulled up here, but turns out the back room is filled with all of the other, Yakuza family members and the head honcho, the kaisho of the Kanto Yakuza families. This old dude, I don't even know his name, but I'm just going to call him Old Boss Man. And Sato's there. And Tozawa walks into an ambush, and Sato's the one kind of running the meeting, which is, like, if you think about this, Sato's what, like 25? He can't be older than 28, like, in this fictional story, right? So at 28, Sato's already jumping so many levels in the organization. He's already running his own family, or he's going to end up running his own family. And now he's the one doing the lead negotiations against Tozawa. So fucking huge for our man Sato. Very good look. All right, let's get here. Meanwhile, outside, everyone has arrived, right? Like, a lot of the officers have arrived. I don't know if a lot of the officers have arrived. I misspoke. I think Katagiri and Jake are there, and then Masaki, like, leaves because her work is done. Tozawa's got bigger fish to fry right now than Masaki, so Masaki leaves to go check on her mom, and then Sam, Jake, and Katagiri are there. I actually do think some cops are there as well, but they're all just waiting outside because you got to let the Yakuza finish Yakuza business before going in and doing all the legal shit. Let me take a sip of water real quick. This is what I call Sato the infant, this scene, because it's funny, because Tozawa is obviously way older than Sato. He views Sato as a child. He called Sato a child in the last episode. He doesn't respect Sato because he thinks he's too young. But Sato is wise beyond his years. So he calls Sato an infant, and I just thought that it was funny because it's ironic. The infant is the one who ends up fucking destroying Tozawa. Oh, we got a chat real quick from the freaking Rican 123. What up? This show is hard to part from. Put my friends on at least. Have your episode 8 and 9 reviews before this, but saying hi. By the way, the wife was the master planner since season 1. Blew my mind. Yeah, Kazuko is such an amazing fucking character, and it's crazy that we just see her. I think this season is the first season we get the introduction to Kazuko, but man, we find out in a few scenes down the line that she's the one who fucking planned all of this shit. So it's just such a well done show, man, and I love that she is the mastermind. But let's keep going in this scene. Obviously, this meeting is about confronting Tozawa with the fact that he's a fucking snitch. So Sato pulls out the FBI agreement, and Tozawa at first denies, right? He's like, I'm not the snitch. What type of evidence do you have? And then Sato's like, here, we got papers with your signature on it. And then Tozawa's like, okay, well, maybe I did cooperate with the FBI, but so what? Like, we all cooperate with the police. And then one of the other Yakuza members, I don't know if it was Ichigawa. I don't think it was Ichigawa, but one of the other Yakuza family heads is like, dude, we cooperate with local cops, not the fucking FBI, not the Americans, right? This goes against your country. And Sato's like, or not Sato, Tozawa's like, well, I gave the FBI nothing of value. I didn't give them anything. And immediately Sato's like, yeah, you did. What about the Miura family bust in Hawaii recently? What about the San Francisco bust a few months prior? You've harmed fellow Japanese Yakuza crime families' operations overseas to benefit yourself, right? So you're a fucking snitch and you have given up stuff. So Tozawa is cooked. And he does the only thing he can, right? He plays the only card that he can play, which is the money card. And I gotta say, the money card is powerful because everyone has a price, right? Everyone, or I should say most people have a price, especially depending on what it is. So Tozawa's like, look, I'll just fucking pay all you guys off. I fucked up. I'm a bad guy, even amongst us. I have no honor. But what's your price? Name your price. I'll pay it. We'll do whatever it takes. And that's when Ichigawa was like, dude, you have no honor. And then Tozawa's like, I'll pay, whatever you want, I'll pay. And Ichigawa's like, dude, you don't have that much money. And Tozawa pulls out his wife card. He's like, well, I have a wife who's extremely wealthy. If I had to ballpark it, I'd say Kazuko's family, and I know this is kind of based on a true story. It's true in the sense that an actual reporter was in the U.S. writing this, but obviously we know that a lot of the shit Jake Adelstein, the actual author, he probably made up. I don't care because he wrote a fucking great story, so I still think he's awesome. But I would say I would estimate Kazuko's family to be easily 9 figures, if not probably billionaires. Like they may be on that level because she's got the type of money where it's now moving corporations, right? Like, yeah, Tozawa has the manpower in terms of he could kill you and shit, but Kazuko's family is the one that can get presidents of other major financial companies to be like, all right, we'll let this criminal murderer on our board, right? So I think Kazuko's got easily 9 figures, if not touching maybe a bill in terms of net worth, not liquid. I'm not saying she has that money in their family accounts, but just all the businesses they own, all the investments they have, it probably amounts to close to $1 billion. Anyways, Tozawa's like, yo, my wife's got tons of money. Like she can pay whatever you guys want. And she pulls up and she's like, no, like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not helping you at all. So now Tozawa is done, right? His wife is stepping up and saying, I'm not guaranteeing you any of the money. So what are you going to do? And this is a complete ambush now. Tozawa is absolutely done. And Kazuko, she's such a fucking badass character. Side note, if you're not watching Shogun right now, you got to go watch Shogun. We've been breaking that down as well. But in Shogun, what a lot of viewers are learning is about the samurai tradition. I think it was a samurai tradition. I could be talking out of my ass, but seppuku, right? Like when you've dishonored yourself to a point where the only acceptable result is to just kill yourself. So Kazuko tells Tozawa, like, it's over for you. There's only one route, right? And she just silently or quietly drops the small blade on the table. And Tozawa knows what that means. And, there's I thought this part was interesting. Like, I didn't know what Tozawa was going to do. I I don't think he's a man of honor, but then when push came to shove, I guess he would rather kill himself than maybe fight for his life. I guess he knew he was dead anyway, so maybe this is some way to reclaim a little bit of respect and honor. But Kazuko asks for all the other family leaders to leave, and then she tells Tozawa, "I'll tell our children that you died honorably." Oh my god. Ruthless, ruthless, ruthless. Fucking might have been my favorite line in the entire episode. Just, "I'll tell the children you died nobly." And she walks out, and it's just Hagino. Hagino's the only one keeping watch of Tozawa. And dude, I would heavily encourage you to go rewatch this scene again with the sound on very, very loud, because the soundtrack that plays during this scene as Tozawa gets ready to take his own life is crazy, bro. Like, you could feel how intense it is, where in the span of 2 minutes, Tozawa has completely like just calculated in his head what's going to happen to him, and like process the fact that he's going to die. Like, just the knuckle touch on the desk when he kind of leans over and ducks his head, he acknowledges that not only has he lost, but he's not going to jail. He's going to have to kill himself. Like, and he just kind of grits his teeth, and he's like, the game is the game. I got to do it. And I can't even describe the soundtrack. It's just like, it's so fucking intense and terrifying and jarring and exhilarating. It was just a combination of everything. I almost put myself in Tozawa's shoes, which was fucking just a wild thing to even think about. But yeah, he does the deed. He kills himself. All of the other fellow Yakuza family members walk out. They all get in their cars, and you see Sato give Samantha the peace sign, which I saw a lot of commenters in the subreddit freaking out about, because it was just such a cool thing for Sato to do. Sato's so fucking cool. But everything seems fine. Kazuko comes out, and she actually talks to Jake, and she tells Jake, basically, "I'm disappointed in you." And I don't think that Kazuko was 100% on the fuck Jake level, because even if Jake didn't do what you wanted him to do, and I'm going to break this down a little bit more, so just be patient with me, but even if Jake wasn't perfect in what you wanted him to do, for what it's worth, Jake is a fucking great reporter. He's a terrible friend, right? He's not a reliable friend all the time. Like, if he cares about his friends, but when it's his friends versus his work, he will always choose his work, same as his family. So Jake has his flaws in that way. But if you really zoom out and think about it, Jake is an impressive motherfucker, right? Dude is 21, I think, in this show, right? He's supposed to be 20 or 21, so super young, and is fluent in 2 languages. Japanese is an incredibly difficult language to learn, so he's fluent in Japanese, tested so well that the most prestigious paper in Tokyo hired him as a reporter. Like tested that well that he beat racism and discrimination. And then is a phenomenal reporter, and he's cultivated great relationships, and now he's in the middle of the biggest fucking story in probably Japan right now, right? So Jake is super impressive. So I think Kazuko, still deep down, she's a very smart woman, understands that Jake is still really impressive, and he's still gonna be an asset to have down the line, but she can't express that. It's like an Asian parent expressing, when you get a 97, like, they can't be like, "Oh, you got a 97, so great. It's where why isn't it 100? Why isn't it 100?" Right? Now, some of it could just be traumatizing shit. I'm not speaking from experience or anything, but there could be another element of it where you kind of stay hard on your kids because, you got to stay hard on your children because you don't want them to be satisfied and think that all of a sudden, they don't have to put any more work in. So I went on that crazy rant, but here's what happened. In season 1, the videotape that was dropped off at Jake's apartment was actually from Kazuko. So Kazuko is the one who leaked the tape of Shigematsu killing Paulina. And what she wanted Jake to do was to publish a story that would have destroyed Shigematsu's political career, and it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have put Tozawa in jail. He probably would have found a way to duck that shit, but it would have really hurt Tozawa's power and it would have checked him, right? Like it would have set him back a lot more to the point where he's not as dangerous as he ultimately became. So that was what Kazuko wanted Jake to do, and Jake fucked that up, right? Like the tape ended up getting destroyed, all of those things. It got fucked up. So she tells Jake, you were supposed to be better. Like she knows his name and you failed, and I'm not going to forget that. So it was kind of a ruthless thing for her to tell Jake, but I don't think that she's all of a sudden like, oh, I fucking hate Jake, fuck Jake. I think she needs Jake to be afraid of her, and she needs Jake to feel that he has really let her down, because she will end up playing a card with Jake somewhere down the line. Jake will be useful at some point, and it's better for her. It's more advantageous for her to have Jake think that she is disappointed in him than to have Jake think that like, oh, Kazuko thinks I'm awesome, right? So this is a really strategic move by Kazuko, complete poker face. The actress who plays her does a great job. Samantha's just kind of watching the whole thing and just kind of just holding back laughter. Meanwhile, Hagino, who is the coolest fucking henchman or number 2 in this season or in this show in general? Is it Hagino? Is it Yabuki? Or does it ultimately become Jen? And I guess you could technically put Sato from season 1 in this as well. But I'm actually curious if you have an opinion. Throw it in the chat or throw it in the comments. But Hagino comes out and he just coldly tells Katagiri, yeah, there's a man who killed himself in the back. Katagiri knows the deal. Tozawa is dead. Tozawa was threatening Katagiri's family. Tozawa had to go. Like, this is a huge dub for Katagiri. At this point, it's personal. It's not about the police arresting him properly. So they're going to check on Tozawa's body, and Jake immediately whips out the cam and is trying to get pictures and get a story. And Katagiri's just like, dude, no. Like this story can't get published the way you want to publish it. Like, you got to learn to shut your mouth in certain ways. And since Jake respects Katagiri, he puts the camera down and he understands that there's certain things that you got to take to the grave, or at least not put on the record. All right, so the aftermath, right? Tintin's in the hospital, and Jake goes to see him, and Tintin does end up recovering it. Tintin ends up recovering, and they have a nice moment where they're kind of boys again, and, Tintin, he makes a tongue-in-cheek comment where he's like, you're a terrible friend, because Jake won't feed Tintin, like, actual solid food. He's only allowed to eat broth. And but they're kind of joking, but it's funny because in some ways Jake is a terrible friend, right? And we see that moments after where once Tintin wakes up and things seem good on that end, Shinohara comes in and confronts Jake, and he's like, I need to talk to you. Did you tell Lynn Oberfeld that Jason Aoki was the source of the FBI? And Jake lies and says, no, I would never do that. It wasn't me. And Shinohara knows that it's a lie, right? It's like if you're in an elevator. This is a crude example. I'm very tired, so just bear with me on this example. But it's like if you're in an elevator and it's just you and one other person and someone farts, right? Like, you both know who farted, right? So it's just one of those things where Shinohara knows that it's only him and Jake who know like about the FBI agreement with Tozawa. Since he wasn't the one who leaked it, it had to be Jake. And the fact that Jake lied to Shinohara's face just destroys him. And he tells Jake, like, you and I are done. Stay the fuck away from me from here on out. So it's fucked up, but poetic in some ways. Jake regains a friend in Tintin, but permanently loses a friend in Shinohara. Emmy, I don't know if she's left the Meicho at this point or if she's going to leave the Meicho, but after that terrible conversation with Suzaku, where basically he's like, yeah, we're not publishing that story. Like, we can't. Emmy goes to Shingo and gives Shingo the story on Shigematsu. And I think it's also the story about, I don't know if it's the FBI story, but it's the story about Shigematsu. Either way, we know Shigematsu is running this smaller boutique paper. It's a huge story. This is the type of story that could change his paper, right? So she gives it to Shingo, and then Shingo's like, why don't you come work for me, right? Fuck the Meicho. Like, that place is corrupt as fuck. Like, it's not what you really thought it was. It's led by people who have lost their morals. Come work for me. Oh, I kept calling him Suzaku. His name's Ozaki-san. I fucked up. Sorry, guys. I'm terrible with the names. But, yeah, Shingo's like, come work for me. And Emmy's like, dude, I can't work for you. Obviously, we used to date. Like, we had that whole thing where my little brother, almost kidnapped your young son and slapped him in the face. Like, I just don't know, man. Like, there's just too much baggage. But Shingo's like, fuck this. Like, just come work for me. Like, we'll figure it out. And I think from that smile that Emmy gives, I think she does end up going to work with Shingo. I shouldn't even say work for. I think work with. Shingo's a good dude. He's a fucking good dude. And if Emmy goes to his paper, there's no doubt in my mind that that paper starts rising very quickly. And she'll probably poach Jake. I don't know. I'm speculating at this point. Sam, what's her game plan, right? Well, Sam has earned the respect of Kazuko, and as I mentioned before, Kazuko's family at this point probably in the high nine figures, if not maybe 1 billion in net worth. And Sam's the one who kind of set up this whole thing, right? Because Misaki was fucked, right? Because Tozawa had Misaki's mom as hostage, but Sam is the one who was really quick thinking. And at this point, she had to be because she's taken so many fucking L's already in season 1 and season 2, and she was super naive in season 1 when she got all that money stolen. At this point, Sam is a lot smarter on her feet. She's taken some L's, and she's the one who basically came up with the idea of this whole setup, right? Setting Tozawa up. So you got to give. Was that you? Wait, quick chat from Abe. First of all, I gotta apologize to Abe because I've been late as fuck on the last 2 streams, so appreciate you still tuning in. But we just got word from Abe that he is, or he or she. I don't know anything else about you, but I'm just gonna say, Abe is Conversation C8457 on Reddit. Fuck yeah, appreciate the knowledge that you were dropping, and I am going to touch on your comment more towards the end of this stream when we see obviously the ending scene with Sato and the rest of the families. It's probably my favorite scene in this entire episode, so we'll touch more about the comment that Abe dropped in the subreddit that gave me so much knowledge because not a lot of us know about this stuff. But anyways, back to Sam's conversation with Kazuko. Look, Kazuko respects Sam because Sam did end up setting up this whole thing, right? She was the one who thought on her feet and was like, "Hey, Misaki, like let's tell Sato about where we're gonna meet Tozawa. Like we can kind of flip this." So Sam helped turn a massive L into a W. Kazuko knows that. She respects Sam. Sam sets up a meeting with Kazuko, and she drops some serious knowledge for Kazuko. She basically tells Kazuko to buy Bitcoin when it was at $1, right? It's that type of thing. Sam knows about the project that's going to be built next year, obviously from the engineer who was murdered earlier this season. It's a mixed-use development project. Anyone who's been in the real estate space, if a major project is coming to the area, that area is going to get super expensive. If you can get in ahead of time and buy property for cheap around it, you're going to make a fucking fortune. Not only that, if you own that property, that's cash flow for life because you can charge crazy rent for people to live there, for businesses to operate there. And Kazuko, even if her family is wealthy, how do rich people stay wealthy? They keep, they make more money, right? Like they got to keep their money going. So she drops the knowledge to Kazuko, tells Kazuko about this project that's going to be built, and Kazuko basically knows, okay, I'm going to make a ton of money off this, and what do you want in return? Do you want to be investment partners, blah, blah, blah. Sam's like, I'm done being investment partners. That shit's just over for me. I think she's wrong. I think she still should have been investment partners with Kazuko. Like, she could have made a fortune, and Kazuko is a way different operator than your typical Yakuza family. But I get it. Sam's tired, and she wants to live a straighter life. So, and here's the quick reminder where in season 1, it was revealed that Sam stole money from like the Mormons, like 40,000 or something like that. And she ran off with that money to go to Japan. So Sam owes debts, but all Sam wants from Kazuko is 10 million yen. I went on the subreddit. I think someone converted that to like 66 grand USD. If you account for inflation, maybe that's like 100 or so K US dollars, something like that. My math might be off, but it's a lot of money, but it's not crazy life-changing money. Could she have gotten more from Kazuko? Undoubtedly, but it seems like at this point Sam just wants to get some peace and she doesn't want to push the envelope. It also might be smart in a way because if she does decide to come back to Tokyo and get involved in the business game, she may be on Kazuko's good side because she didn't try to squeeze Kazuko for more money. So it could leave the door open down the line for way more lucrative business opportunities with Kazuko. So maybe Sam did play this the right way. Either way, Kazuko obviously gives her the money, and that's that. Oh, shit. All right, this is the scene where I'm going to shout out Abe. Sato becomes Oyabun, and this scene is so fucking great because in season 1, when Sato is still a very inexperienced member of the Chiharakai and the person who had recruited him was Kumi, we see the initiation scene of Kumi, right? Where Kumi gets his promotion, and Ashita was present at that time. Nakahara, who was still alive, I believe, was present as well. And they're kind of doing the whole ritual, and they're doing the clap scene. I've rewatched that scene numerous times. The scene is just so fucking intense, like how they're speaking. They're like, "Whoa!" Like they're just going. Everything's intense. They're drinking sake. Everyone is there and present, and they start doing this clap, right? And you see Sato tearing up as he's clapping because you see that realization where he's like, "Man, I found my family. Like this is my family now." So it's a powerful moment. And as a viewer at that time, you kind of feel sad about it because it's early on in the season. You know that Sato is about to experience what gang life is really about. So he's going to take some L's. He's going to experience some losses. He might die. So as the viewer, you're like, fuck. Like he's kind of drank the Kool-Aid of gang life. But it is kind of crazy how it all works out. But from Sato's perspective, it's, hey, this is my family now. So this is where Abe was dropping the knowledge. This older man is the Kaicho of Kanto. So the Kanto area all reports to him. We kind of got a hint of this early in the season during Ashida's funeral or something like that, where they talked about him being way too old at this point to really be running things. And he is pretty fucking old. But Tozawa's betrayal has brought this man back from the brink of retirement, and he's got to give young Sato credit, right? Young Sato now needs to officially be the Oyabun of the Chiharakai. His men respond to him. He's a great leader. He's really fucking young, but he's already racked up so much XP, so much experience. He's survived a near-death experience. He saved Ashita. Yo, let me take a break real quick. Sato's resume at this point is actually crazy. If this was the NBA, he's already got at least 2 championships. Because season 1, he single-handedly saves Ashita. Doesn't matter if he came in at the right time, timing, blah, 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 blah. He saves Ashita's life, kills one of the attackers, and basically keeps the Chiharakai from going extinct, right? So he does that in season 1 as a young recruit. That's a championship right there. He then survives a stabbing. Should have died. Call it plot armor, whatever. That's championship number 2. And then this season, he pardoned Jen and now got Jen to be, a lifelong loyal guy to him. And he successfully defeated Hayama and has now navigated the Chiharakai out of the brink of extinction again. That might be another championship. At the very least, he's got 2 rings, if not 3, right? So Sato's resume at this point is fucking crazy. This is a no-brainer choice. He becomes the Oyabun, and we see this same exact scene that we saw in season 1, but this time, it's Sato becoming the leader. Super emotional scene. I love the way Sato, asks to become Oyabun. He first says, Oyabun, real soft and subtle, and then he screams out, will you accept my pledge, in a powerful way. And you see the old Kaicho look at Sato, and he doesn't show much emotion in his face, but you could see just there's respect there, and, he's proud of the kid. He's like, I accept. Fucking crazy scene. I was tearing up watching it. Amazing. Just amazing. Also, these tattoos are so fire. I would never get Yakuza tattoos because as an Asian person, people are going to think I'm in the Yakuza. But these tattoos are so fire, man. They're so fire. Oh, and shout out to Abe. So really what Abe helped clarify on Reddit was who this old guy was. Because it's if you're new to this and you haven't read the book, I'm going to go back a slide. If you're new to this and you haven't read the book, Tokyo Vice, and you don't know a ton about how the Yakuza operate and the politics of the Yakuza, this stuff can be super foreign, right? So a lot of people were wondering, who is this guy? Because we thought Ashita was the Oyabun, and then Tozawa became the leader. So what's actually going on? So what's actually going on is that Ashita still was reporting to this guy. He was still reporting to this guy. Ashita was the head of one of the Yakuza families in Kanto, but this guy was still the Kaicho, and then Tozawa came from Kansai, and basically what was happening in season 1, and shout out to Abe. Abe Conversation C8457 on the subreddit Tokyo Vice. I pinned this comment because I was like, I'm definitely going to use this for my live stream. Side note, I never try to pretend to know everything when I'm streaming. I'm just talking and just giving my thoughts. So if you guys have knowledge to share, just share that shit. Drop it in the chat. But basically, remember in season 1, like Nakahara was in on it with Tozawa, right? Like the hit on Ashita, it was all part of a scheme. I guess for the Kansai families to start taking more territory from the Kanto families, and it might be because the leader, the chairman of the Kanto families, is this old dude. So maybe because he's so old, the Kansai families are like, hey, like we're sensing weakness. Here's an opportunity. So Nakahara, who was basically this guy's level, this old guy's level, but he was that level in Kansai. He and Tozawa were working together. Then ultimately, when Tozawa killed him, Tozawa became the head of the Kansai families, and then he had so much power at that time that he also like took over, or at least got all of the Kanto families to submit to his will as well. So that's the background of all of this. So Sato now takes Ashita's former spot, but he's still going to report to this old guy until the old guy inevitably passes away. And now I don't know who's going to be the leader of the Kansai families because Tozawa is dead as fuck. Breakups everywhere. Jake is still under the impression that him and Misaki are going to be a thing now and date happily ever after. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Misaki's like fucking 10 years older than him. Maybe she's not 10 years older than him, but you know, she's 4 years older than him. If you convert that for how mature a 21-year-old guy is, she's like 10 years older than him. And she's like, dude, I just need to get the fuck away from you. Like, this was a fling. I was never going to have anything serious with you. You're still white. Like, this is 1999 Japan. Like, you know how it is, right? So she tells Jake, like, you're going to do great things, but I need a quiet life. Like, you're a psychotic reporter. Like, it's been nice. I got to run. And Jake's devastated, but he'll bounce back, right? Jake's a stud. He'll bounce back. Meanwhile, on the Sato end, he's now the Oyabun. You know, he's the head dude in charge, and he's kind of chilling, smoking a cigar. Might have been a cigarette. And Sam pulls up and basically tells Sato, look, like, I'm the head honcho. I'm dating the head honcho, but I gotta leave. I gotta just take a hiatus. I gotta do some thinking, and I'll be back. So she's breaking up with Sato in a way, but not in a way where it's like, I don't want to date you anymore. I'm gonna date some other dude in the city. She's just leaving, right? And anyone who's tried to run a distance relationship before, they rarely work. You know, if you're breaking up over distance, one could argue that maybe you guys don't really want it bad enough, and that could be true. And it's just a timing thing, right? Like at this point, it's probably not the best. And so she tells Sato, look, I'll be back, but I just got to get out of here and do some thinking, which is fair. Sam's been through a lot. And look, from Sato's perspective, he's a little bit hurt, but he respects it. He understands it. And it's probably not the best time for Sato to date someone right now seriously as well. Like for him to date this white woman as the new Oyabun of the Chiharakai right after they almost died, like, it's just not the best time. You know, Sato's got to spend his time kind of figuring out how to be leader. He's got a lot of things to fix. He's got a lot of things to run. He's got to figure out ways to make the Chiharakai money. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when I talk about could we have a season 3 and what I would potentially do. So you know what? I'll save this for like in 5 minutes. But yeah, breakups everywhere. I just love this little scene. I titled this Chiharakai HQ. It's so fascinating seeing the scenes of all the Yakuza members, because you're like, it's Tokyo, so it's not like they have a detached house, right? It's not the US or something like that. So what do their headquarters look like? And they're just these big, you know, mixed-use office buildings, and I just think they're so fucking cool, man. Like, imagine you're in a gang and your HQ is like just some corporate building in the city. Like, I guess if you work on Wall Street, you're also in a corporate gang. So I guess it's similar in that way, but you get what I'm saying. But we just get a quick shot as Samantha's riding off on her motorcycle of what the Chiharakai HQ looks like from the outside, and it's just so fucking cool, man. Like, you see the first level, and then you see the second level. That's where a lot of the soon-to-be recruits in their tracksuits are kind of chilling. That's like where the club is at, right? If you guys have watched Sopranos, you know all of those scenes in the Bada Bing, the strip club, in the back of the strip club, like where all the mobsters kind of congregate. Those scenes are fucking awesome. That's kind of like their clubhouse where they meet. And then you also have Satriali's, which is the deli. Well, this is the Chiharakai clubhouse. It's the second level. Then it cuts up to the third level, which is where the Oyabun, the chairman's hanging out. And you see, man, Sato's in his fucking executive office, but he's hard at work, man. Like that's the life of power, right? Like if you really want to be a great leader like Sato is and like Ishida was, it's not a fun position to be in. Like it's a stressful ass position, and a great Oyabun isn't worried about himself. He's worried about protecting all of the people that are in his family. So you already see Sato, like he's just gotten the breakup message from Sam. Doesn't take any. If that was me, bro, I'd be breaking out some of that whiskey, probably drinking myself into a stupor. But Sato, he's a G. He's right back to work, already filing paperwork, taking care of things, figuring out what to do next. I just thought it was a really cool scene. And this last slide I titled Retirement, and it's basically just Jake showing Katagiri the story that got published. I think this is probably the story that Jake published for the Meicho. Maybe it's on Tozawa's FBI agreement because he's dead now. Or he could be pulling out the story that you know what? I think it's Jake's story that he ended up writing for the Meicho. So look, Jake is a high achiever, right? He's the type of dude where if he wins a championship or if he wins a game, he's already thinking about the next thing that he has to do, right? There's people in this world who are wired like that, where they're so driven that they can't really stop. So he shows Katagiri the paper. Katagiri's in retirement. It's a huge story for Jake, and Jake already is just like, yeah, I don't even care anymore. I'm ready for the next thing. So Jake's already seeking the next glorious thing that he can write. He's kind of over it. It reminds me of a quote from, I think it was Pat Riley, where he said, like, winning doesn't feel good. Losing just hurts so bad, and winning is just relief. Like, when you win, you're just like, oh, thank God I won. But the pleasure from winning is never going to feel as strong as the pain from losing. And if that's just the human condition, man, holy shit. But anyways, Jake is just like, man, I'm on to the next story. Katagiri's like, see, that's your problem. You can't stay still. You can never take a deep breath. So he challenges Jake to take like 10 deep breaths or something, and Jake can't even do it, and Katagiri laughs at him. But then when Jake goes to the bathroom, Katagiri tries to do it himself, and he realizes that he's just like Jake, right? He's the same as fucking Jake, and that's why he's able to call out Jake's behavior, and he just laughs because he realizes him and Jake are two peas in a pod. I don't know what Katagiri's going to do next, but that ends the episode and that ends the season. So look, I know that a lot of the talk, right, was that this is kind of how the story is supposed to end, right? It's sort of like Shogun, where we're going to get one season, and that's just, that season flies through the book, and that's basically it. And there are always legitimate concerns when you start giving TV producers the opportunity to go write their own stories as opposed to following from a book, right? Like we saw how Game of Thrones just turned to shit once they no longer had source material. And I'm not fucking blaming them or saying that I could do better or anything. Like it's a lot easier to write when you already have the book there or the story there, because you could focus on how to tell it as opposed to coming up with the story. Coming up with the story is so fucking difficult, man. So what could they do to prolong this story without making it shitty and with starting from scratch, right? They no longer have any source material. I haven't thought super deeply about this, and if you're watching this on replay or live or you have any takes, like throw them in there. And I know the subreddit is buzzing right now because that's basically what the conversation's been about. But here's what we need to do first and foremost. Let me check how many members are in this subreddit, because I just went through this similar experience with Warrior. So this show has 8,700 members in the subreddit. That's still really small, right? For reference, Shogun's at almost 40,000 now. So first thing we got to do is we got to spread the word on this show and get more people to watch it, because it truly is an extremely high quality 2 seasons. I'll say this, Warrior, if you've watched Warrior, Warrior went through a very similar path where Warrior had 2 phenomenal seasons, but it was on Cinemax, right? And then Cinemax was a mess, so they got folded up into, the HBO umbrella, and Warrior was done after season 2, but because it got good streaming numbers on HBO said, all right, we'll make a season 3, but then HBO was going through a lot of different shit. There was a writer's strike, so season 3 of Warrior was like, it was okay, but it wasn't as good as season 1 and 2, and now, there's concerns that there probably won't be a season 4 of Warrior, right? The reason why I don't think Tokyo Vice would go through the same kind of pattern is because, A, they have more name brand actors in the show. And maybe I'm just talking about one with fucking Ken Utanabe, or is it Watanabe? I think it's Watanabe or Watanabe, but he was in Inception, right? Like he's a fucking superstar actor, bro. He's older, but dude, he's a legit star. Also, this show started on HBO, right? Where Warrior was always, it always felt like a redheaded stepchild because it was on Cinemax at first. It felt like HBO never really gave it that much respect. Tokyo Vice, even if HBO isn't marketing the show a ton, it started on HBO. It's an HBO native idea. So I do think like it would be as simple as just keep everything the same and then get talented fucking writers to get season 3 going. Make sure it's good. Also, the acting in the show is so fucking good, man. All right, so what do I think are some storylines they could potentially touch on in season 3? There's several things, like several different threads that they could pull. One, what if Ken still wants to act again in season 3? What is his career path post retirement? Right. I don't want to see a season 3 where he's back on the police force. That doesn't. I think that storyline is wrapped. So Jake had floated something out with Ken on potentially entering politics and being prime minister, and he was like, "Fuck that." But look, if you really zoom out, him getting into politics, obviously not being prime minister right away, that's a major jump, but getting into some local form of politics would make sense for this dude. It would make sense for his career arc. It could involve him in a lot more storylines involving potential scandal within the office, crime. At the same time, if you're a politician, you're going to be very valuable and accessible to reporters. Like, there's a lot that can be there if they write the storyline with this motherfucker, entering politics. And he wants to do good. Like, Katagiri was a good cop. He risked his own life. He risked his family's life to bring Tozawa down. And he was savage enough where he was able to catch Yabuki, right? So he had both sides. He knew how to play that game, and he knew how to get violent and defend when push came to shove, and he's smart as fuck, and he's respected. So Katagiri entering into some local, smaller, or lower level form of politics to try to help people, genuinely help people, but then discover how much of a shit show and how corrupt it is, and then try to work to get through that, that would be a great potential storyline for season 3, and that's just one of them. All right, where do we go from Jake, right? Jake, here's where I think this could go. I think Jake could take the next step up at the Meicho, right? So what ends up happening with the Meicho storyline is Shinohara leaves because he just can't bear to be around fucking Jake. Tintin stays with Jake, but Tintin's still kind of some middling reporter, but he's now very close friends with Jake, and he's still friends with Shinohara. Shinohara hates Jake, but there's that three-way triangle relationship there. Jake starts rising very quickly at the paper despite being white because he has now been a part of some major stories, and Emmy for season 3 should leave the paper. Emmy should work with Shingo, and they should get to the point where now that paper is starting to really rise up to the point where it's not going to challenge the Meicho. That would be completely unrealistic, but it could be the boutique paper that's starting to make waves and actually get like serious readership, right? To the point where they're getting a voice and they're experiencing some real success and they're writing awesome stories. And now there's this bit of a competitive element between Emmy and Jake, right? In season 1 and 2, we get this mentorship, she's my boss element where he has to earn her respect, and then in a way she also earns his, but she's still his superior, and what she says goes. Well, now Emmy leaves because she's like, I can't stay at the Meicho anymore. Fuck the old dude. Fuck how corrupt it is. She goes with Shingo to actually pursue journalism for the sake of journalistic integrity, and because they're so gifted and they work well together, that paper starts doing well, right? Then Jake starts rising up. I'm not saying he takes Emmy's spot. That would be unrealistic. But with Emmy gone, there leaves a void, right? And naturally, you could keep Jake at his same level in the paper, but maybe just, give him more responsibilities, more pay. Like, it's set him up to the point where he's now the star reporter of the Meicho. And I could see Baku doing that because we learned a lot more about Baku towards the end of this season where he's a better dude than I originally thought. So Emmy leaves. Jake ends up taking a lot more of those roles and rising up in power. And now all of a sudden this relationship that used to be, you're my boss, becomes a little bit competitive, right? Like we're Emmy now is competing against Jake. Like, I think that would make for a very interesting relationship. Masaki, I don't want her back for season 3. Nothing against her. It's just like that character arc is over. I think bringing her back would be there's just no need. I'm iffy on Sam. I'm undecided on if Sam comes back or not. I haven't really thought through how you could potentially reintroduce Sam back into the storyline and have it not be corny or forced. Sato, very obvious storyline. Very, very obvious storyline, right? Can it get more obvious? He's now taking over a crime family that's been decimated by Tozawa's repeated attacks, has the youngest leader, most likely in the Kanto region, and they're probably broke, right? Like they lost out on some serious investment opportunities when the architect got fucking murdered, right? Ashita was like, we don't know how much money they had, but they didn't really have access to guns and they didn't have that many men, and they were kind of getting bled dry by Tozawa. So like maybe they're not broke, but they don't have a ton of money. So Sato's got to figure out a way to get the membership back up, right? So you got to recruit, get the membership healthy, but at the same time, you want the right guys in the Chiharakai. You don't want disloyal motherfuckers, and you don't want psychos like Hayama. You need that combination of psychotic, but also someone that is going to stay loyal to the family. You got to get the membership up because they lost a lot of members when Tozawa was bullying them, right? So you gotta get your membership back up. Figure out a way to feed these guys. Figure out a way to bring money into the organization. Because Nagata's like original plan to take out a lot of the modern crime families, like that's not going to end with her getting transferred, right? Big picture, Sato's still got to find a way more and more to diversify how the Chiharakai are making money. They can't just make money off of extortion and fucking gambling and stuff like that. I mean, Tozawa, give him credit, he was a psycho, but he had the right idea with trying to go legitimate and trying to get real money that they can't put you in jail over. So that's going to be Sato's challenge. He's going to have to figure out a way to keep the Chiharakai even running, and then see if he can bring in more money and balance like these old dying businesses with new ventures that they got to potentially get in. At the same time, he's got to protect his family because, hey, Tozawa's gone, but you're still weak. Your family is still weak. And even if it can be mutual respect between these Yakuza families, I mean, we just saw with Tozawa, like war happens, right? So Sato is a sitting duck right now with his family depleted. He's got to find a way to build up their strength and figure out how they're going to stay strong, because there could be another family in the Kanto region that takes over. And then you could have a bigger picture story with the old guy, the Kaicho. He passes away. So now there's a power void there. And depending on what type of leader they have taken over, because it can't be Sato. Sato can't be the one who steps up to chairman. That would be far too big of a jump. That'd be corny-ass writing, right? Sato staying as Oiban, the Chiharakai, feels right. He needs to stay in that role right now. But you could have like some other leader of a family that we haven't known make some sort of power play. Maybe he's a good leader. Maybe he's a crazy leader. But that could be an interesting place for the story to go. And then I guess those are really the big main characters. I don't know if it would be more crime. Like it could be more of a white collar crime type of storyline, and you have pockets of violence. That's kind of how seasons 1 and 2 felt anyways. But there's a lot of potential for a season 3. I think, look, as per usual, man, I hate to say this, it's going to come down to the numbers. That's just the truth, right? Like, I covered True Detective season 4 with Damon. That season sucked fucking ass. That season was a fucking travesty, man. Travesty. I was ashamed after watching that season. But guess what? It brought in numbers. There was nothing else on during that time, and the True Detective brand is always going to bring in numbers no matter what. And guess what? They put up great numbers, and all of a sudden, you know, it got greenlit for a season 5. And I'm worried that season 5 is going to be ass because season 4 was complete ass. But the numbers were good, and that's all the execs are looking at. So even if as a show, Tokyo Vice seasons 1 and 2 are amazing and like super well done, they don't have a ton of corny moments. Like it's not very campy or gamey. And there's enough moments of excitability. There's enough moments where it gets, just as it gets predictable, it kind of throw a curveball, and you know the acting's really great. Even if I think this show is just awesome all around, if the numbers don't come in, there's no fucking way HBO is gonna greenlight a season 3. It's just the truth, and I hate to hear that. So, as fans of it, all we can do, I make content on it, right? I make content on the show, try to spread the word. And just tell your friends to watch it. That's all you can do. And you just got to wait and see. We have had precedent before of these types of shows getting renewed. This is not the best example, but Top Boy died after seasons 1 and 2, Summer House. And then Drake got involved. Obviously, I'm not fucking Drake. But someone could get involved. Someone who's a super fan of the show could get involved. And it could get greenlit again way down the line. But, man, there is potential for season 3 to come out. There's a lot of different storylines. We just got to be selfish and push the numbers. That's the only way. I think a good number to look at is honestly the subreddit view count. or the member count. I think like maybe I'm fucking crazy. Maybe there's no correlation, but I just think there is. I think a lot of the shows that I've seen that have a season two, they get renewed. There's shows where the subreddit ends up hitting 30,000. Wednesday was one off the top where, look, they already had a fan base existing from just the Addams family in general, but Wednesday was at 30,000, 35,000 members in the subreddit like last year. That's kind of the number you need to get to. Shogun's at 39,000. I think they'll end up trying to figure out some way to write some story branching off of Shogun, because it's just been so awesome so far. But we got to get the Tokyo Vice subreddit to at least 20,000, if not 30,000 as that base. If we can get that, then I think there's a chance that this gets greenlit for season 3. Because what that means is you have 30,000 real, like, hardcore fans of the show, and that's what you need. So at 8,000, 9,000 right now, I just don't think the overall fan base is big enough for this show to get the season 3. And here's the thing, quality-wise, amazing. I have no problem showing the show to anyone. I think it'll stand on its own against any show. And I never feel like someone's going to come back at me and be like, oh, you have bad taste. This show fucking sucks. Why'd you show me this show? Like, this passes that check. I'll probably show this season 1 and season 2 to anyone, right? So the quality is amazing. Anyone who watches it, I think, is going to get converted to be a fan. Like, it's probably got like an 80% conversion rate. The problem is it's just not getting shown enough. And if you look at the summer slate, there's some heavy fucking hitters coming this summer, man. Let me take a sip of water. Oh, fuck, I just spilled all over myself. But there's some heavy hitters coming this summer. We have the Penguin, and we already know, like, the comic book stuff, there's huge fan bases behind that. Colin Farrell is an amazing actor. He's one of my favorite actors. And the Batman was awesome. And the Penguin, I heard, is going to be crazy fucking dark. I don't know how good it's going to be, but I'm going to cover that, and it's going to be crazy dark. So that's going to take a huge portion of viewership in the summer. Then we have House of the Dragon coming in June. And not to mention, it's the summer, so people are out. So, like, the summer slate is going to come up, and a lot of people's attentions are going to be on these other shows. I think what we got to do is just keep doing the groundwork, keep doing the groundwork. And this is the last thing I'll say about this versus Warrior. And I love Warrior. Warrior is one of my favorite shows. The weaker writing in season 3 really hurt that show. And you could tell it was a little bit rushed, and you could tell that it didn't have the same feel as seasons 1 and 2. I still love season 3. I broke down every episode with Damon. I fucking love that show. But season 3, the writing was a little bit sloppy. The one thing Tokyo Vice has going for it right now is that the writing for seasons 1 and 2 is pretty fucking good, man. Like, there's not, it's really rock solid. And man, I think that's the thing. If it stands on its own in terms of quality. So that gives it a shot for season 3, but it's all about the numbers. Anyways, I've gone on fucking almost an hour and a half. Sorry about that. For those who were waiting, sorry, Abe, if you were waiting and I was late. I've been late with this show. I got to get better about not being as late on these streams, but I just started a new job, so I'm figuring out my timing still. But my motto, like, I'm late, but I'm never going to miss a stream. I'm never missing a stream. So never worry about me not putting out an episode. Like, we got to put out Shogun episode 8, which was so fucking crazy. We still got to do that. We're doing that. Like, I'll stay up till 1 and, try to rush back tomorrow. Me and Damon are cooking up Shogun episode 8. So sometimes, I could be late a day. I could be late an hour or several many hours, but I'm not missing a fucking episode. I'm not missing. Like, I am going to deliver. I am going to show up and talk these shows with y'all. But with that being said, I got to hit the gym. I'll catch you guys later. Appreciate everyone watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.